Erin, so many details coming through. Let's start with those two senior NPA officials being named. Tell us what the implications are.
Yes, so the allegation there, Shahan, is that through handlers, including a Mr. Siopela and Linda MT, the former Commissioner of Correctional Services, Bosasa was ferrying money intended for Nomgcobo Jiba and Lawrence Mkhwebi of the NPA. Top brass in the National Prosecuting Authority also mention of a Jackie Lapinka, who was a PA to Nomgcobo Jiba. But what we don't know at this point is whether or not those bribes actually made it to the intended parties. But on Agrizzi's allegations, on his understanding of things, he thinks and believes that they did receive that money. Jiba receiving 100,000 rand a month, her PA Lapinka getting 20,000 rand a month, and then Mkhwebi getting 10,000 rand a month on Agrizzi's allegations. And we must emphasize their allegations at this point that some of those parties have denied in the press. And Shahan, you may have heard mention of some nicknames. Linda MT reportedly calling Jiba the snake because he perceived her to be very ready to pounce, someone who was like poison and very strong. Mkhwebi got the nickname of Snail because Linda MT thought he was rather a slow character, not that much on him being slimy like a snail, but certainly slow. And then we heard that Lapinka was simply called Jay for Jackie, which was her first name.
Yeah, so let's talk about the links now. We hear allegedly to former President Jacob Zuma.
Yes, so this is where it gets interesting, and I think it's important just to clarify exactly what we've heard and what the evidence is presented here today. We must be clear that what we heard was an audio recording from May, I think it was of 2016, and this is during a meeting allegedly at MT's house, possibly one of the houses that Bosasa had built for him. And during this meeting, Agrizzi is present and Gavin Watson, the CEO of Bosasa at the time, is present. And Watson is busy describing what he intends to say, he says, to the then President Jacob Zuma on the NPA investigation into Bosasa. And why was it critical at this time? You hear a breathless Watson in that audio recording, speaking quite fast, sort of practicing what he's going to say, he says, to the then president. And this was critical at the time because Nomgcobo Jiba and Lawrence Mkhwebi had been named in press reports, and there was a development in terms of disciplinary action against them, which is now currently the subject of an investigation and another inquiry going on. But that then put heat on Bosasa because they were anxious that the investigation might be rekindled, the one they were so eager to have buried, and the very reason why they were allegedly paying all those bribes to NPA officials.
And no details, Erin, because there have been so many people asking whether the journalists allegedly bribed were named at all.
Nothing on that front, and I have to say there was a deafening silence in terms of following up on Agrizzi stating that Papa Leshabane, the spokesperson and one of the directors at what is now African Global Operations but was Bosasa, paid money to journalists. And there Agrizzi said, on questioning from Zondo on what the money was for, Agrizzi said that Leshabane paid that money to journalists unnamed at this point for information and to work with him. But as to the nature of the dynamic, what was the work these journalists were doing for them and who exactly these journalists are has not been stipulated under oath and on record here. And perhaps that is something we will hear when Agrizzi returns to the stand. He's not on tomorrow. We're not sitting tomorrow, but on Monday he returns. And on Zondo's estimation, we still have another 2 days to go with Agrizzi.
All right, thanks so much for that. Appreciate it. Our reporter Erin Bates in Parktown, of course, wrapping up the day's proceedings at the state capture inquiry.